Chapter 1. Distress Signal. The bridge of the Arcadian thrummed with activity, crews diligently monitoring sensor arrays and coordinating the immense galactic starship systems. In the command chair, Captain Zara Kindar watched starfields glide by on the view screen, her mind already drifting to the next uncharted vector of space, awaiting exploration. "Captain, we're receiving a signal," Lieutenant Violin announced, breaking the silence. "It's faint, but the pattern indicates it's a civilian distress beacon." Zara's eyes narrowed as the bridge crew confirmed the alert's distant coordinates. On screen. The view screen flickered, plotting a trajectory through the resonance flares of a nearby nebula. At the far edge of sensor range, a single blue-shifted blip pulsed amidst the stellar haze, the unmistakable signature of a spacecraft in trouble. "Magnify and run Sigma calculations on the source vector," Zara ordered. Her first officer, Commander Tamal, stepped forward with clear skepticism. "Captain, those coordinates put the signal over 700 light-years beyond the nearest charted system. Whatever it is, it's way off the beaten path." "Which is exactly why we should investigate," Zara countered, undeterred. "How many other ships of the Coalition fleets do you suppose are close enough to respond?" Tamal's frown deepened. "None, but with all due respect, opening a distress channel to lure ships into an ambush is one of the oldest pirate traps in the—" "You think I don't know that?" Zara cut him off, keeping her tone measured despite the slight edge. Turning back to the view screen, she studied the blip's pulse pattern cycling against the cosmic backdrops. "Zvena, run a spectral bypass analysis on that beacon's frequency." The Arcadian cybernetic science officer, Zvena, blinked her artificial eyes rapidly as processors whirred. "Decrypting signal. Exploiting carrier algorithm. I'm picking up fragmented burst transmissions embedded in the primary wave." A series of glyphs and alien codes cascaded down the side of the view screen as the bridge translation matrix struggled to interpret the data influx. After a few tense moments, the tactile interfaces reconfigured into recognizable linguistic patterns. "It's archaic Alliance lingua," Zvena stated. "Message repeating, 'This is Esho Kallen, lead explorer of the Kixan expedition. We've made—'" The rest is heavily encoded, but I'm detecting energy patterns that could indicate spatial or chronological displacement. Zara's eyebrows shot up at the mention of the fabled Kixan expedition, a coalition scout fleet that went missing over 3 centuries ago while investigating a dark matter anomaly beyond the farthest reaches of occupied space. To receive a distress call from them defied all probability. "Zvena, keep working on unscrambling that message," she ordered, turning to Lieutenant Violin. "Get me charts plotting every possible trajectory from the Kixan's last known vector to the source of that beacon." As Zvena and Violin set to work, Tamal leaned in close with escalating concern. "Zara, even if that signal is somehow legitimate, responding would take us hundreds of light-years off our assigned patrol path. Coalition Command would never authorize—" "Which is why we won't be asking for authorization, Tamal," Zara stated, her emerald eyes glinting with resolve. "I'll log the investigation under my mandate as an Alliance pathfinder. As one of the fleet's most advanced explorers, the Arcadian can handle wherever this beacon leads." The first officer opened his mouth to protest further, but Zara silenced him with a raised palm. "Spare me the objections. You know as well as I do that if there's even a possibility that's a real distress call from the Kixan expedition, we'd be derelict in our duty, not to investigate. After all," a faint smile crossed her lips, "what's the point of being explorers if we don't actually go exploring?" Despite his obvious reservations, Tamal simply sighed and gave a reluctant nod. Zara allowed herself a moment of satisfaction at having the final word before returning her focus to the view screen and the mystery that lay ahead. Chapter 2. Descent into Chaos. The Arcadian's immense ion drives flared, hurtling the explorer ship through the inky vastness of interstellar space. On the bridge, the atmosphere was tense as Zara's crew prepared for their journey toward the distant distress signal's point of origin. "Course laid in, Captain," Ensign Nava announced from the navigator's station. "The beacon's coordinates have been triangulated. We're ready to enter dimensional rift stream on your mark." Zara nodded, stealing a glance toward Tamal, who eyed the navigational telemetry with visible discomfort. Despite her first officer's reservations, there was no turning back now. "Take us in, Ensign," she ordered firmly. "Ahead, full rift wake." With a flurry of commands, Navar initiated the sequence to fold space-time around the Arcadian's massive Citadel-class explorer frame. Energized Hawking particle fields encapsulated the ship in an azure sphere of radiation, before contracting into an infinitesimal singularity. In a blinding crackle of light and atmosphere displacement, the Arcadian's rift wake propelled them through the cosmos at stealth velocities, stars and galaxies blurring into ethereal lances of luminescence. Zara gripped her chair's armrests, the G-forces of transdimensional acceleration thrumming through her very bones. Just as the first cohesive sensor ghosts began taking shape outside the distortion fields, Zvena's panicked voice cut across the comm channels. "Captain, I'm detecting an unstable dimensional rift forming off our aft terraces." On the view screen, a roiling maw of iridescent colour and whipping gravimetric tendrils started coalescing out of the spatial distortion waves, unmistakable signs of an imminent quantum implosion. "Evasive manoeuvres," Zara shouted. "Belay riftwake and—" Her order was drowned out by the cacophony of alarms and explosive decompression as the rift erupted in a torrent of energized chrononic particles. Hull breaches ripped open along the Arcadians, starboard flanks venting atmospheres and debris in a tornado of destruction. Sparks rained down from shattered ceiling conduits as the bridge crew scrambled to stabilize the wildly pitching starship. On the main viewer, the terrorizing rift pulsed and undulated ever closer. "Full ionic deflectors," Zara commanded over the din. "Evacuate compromised decks and brace for—" Her words became a strangled cry as arcing tendrils of the rift's energy whips lashed across the bridge's viewport. Zara's body seized in blinding arcs of current, every nerve ending searing with pain. Through a viscous haze clouding her vision, she saw Tamal pulling her from her smoking chair, even as he shouted orders to medics and damage control teams. Consoles detonated in a torrent of flame and shrapnel. Then, merciful oblivion enveloped Zara as the chaos descended into Stygian darkness. Some unknowable time later, Zara's eyes creaked open to the blaring of klaxon alerts. She found herself sprawled across an emergency bulkhead port, scorched ceiling beams and sparking conduits raining debris around them. "Tamal!" She coughed out the name, her throat seared by smoke and ozone burns. "I'm here, Captain." Her first officer's familiar voice was strained but reassuring as his silhouette moved to crouch by her side. "Just take it easy. That rift hit us hard, but the Arcadians. Safeguards prevented a full ionic breach." Fighting past the haze fogging her mind, Zara steadied her breathing enough to take stock of her surroundings. They appeared to be in an auxiliary command bunker, likely one of the few sealed spaces still intact after the catastrophic hull failures. Beyond the transparasteel portholes, she could see that they'd dropped from the dimensional rift stream, but their new surroundings were anything but reassuring. Rocky terrestrial terrain and twisted wreckage cluttered the immediate vicinity, while beyond stretched a nightmarish alien vista. Livid clouds of purplish vapour swirled across a lurid skyscape of auroral tempests, punctuated by crimson lightning storms arcing between cyclopean monoliths that shouldn't have been able to coexist on a single world. Despite the clearly terrestrial gravity, the planet's surface roiled and undulated in ways that defied temporal physics. "What in the 7 cosmic planes happened?" Zara demanded, pulling herself upright despite her muscles screaming in protest. "Where are we?" Tamal shook his head grimly. "The rift overloaded our nav sensors, but based on stellar drift patterns, that all looks like the uncharted alien extinction system from the old Central Core astrometrics." His expression hardened as he glanced back at the nightmarish vista outside. Whatever that distress beacon led us into, it sure as celestial hells isn't the Kixon expedition's last known coordinates. For once, Zara didn't have a pithy rejoinder as consoles flickered with new warnings about the hostile environment surrounding them. Their ship had been grievously wounded. The crew was in peril, and they'd somehow been transported to a hellish alien world that shouldn't have been possible. She opened her mouth to request full status reports, but any words were drowned out by a new bone-chilling sound reverberating through the hull. An ungodly, primordial screaming that sent ice through Zara's veins and made the unstable alien vistas outside seem warm and welcoming by comparison. The nightmare was only just beginning. Chapter 3. The Realm of Shadows. The ungodly screaming reverberated through the Arcadian's ravaged hull like the agonized howls of 1,000 damned souls. On the auxiliary bridge, Zara and her officers could only watch in horror as monstrous shapes began materializing amid the nightmarish alien landscape outside their viewports. Stellar reckoning! Tamal's voice was a hoarse whisper as he stared transfixed at the hellscape unfolding before them. What in the cosmic void are those? Towering biomechanical monstrosities stalked across the undulating terrain, their grotesque anatomies seemingly sculpted from salvaged starship wreckage fused with pulsating organic tissue. Weapons arrays and ion impulse drives jutted from chitinous shells in a sacrilegious fusion of technology and blasphemous life. They're breachers, Zvena stated, her synthesized voice tight with concern. Xenofauna expressly designed for interneting through shielded energy fields under extremophilic conditions. You mean those things were built to consume ships? Tamal swallowed hard. Zvena gave a tight nod of confirmation. Their molecular shells resonate at transdimensional frequencies to penetrate duranium-niobium hulls. Coupled with their ability to reality phase through solid matter, they are among the universe's most formidable— Yeah, I get the picture, Tamal cut her off, turning back to Zara with an urgency that matched the thumping of his heart. Captain, we need to get the defenses operational and call for emergency evacuation. If those monstrosities breach us— Our rescue beacons are down, Zara replied grimly, clinging to her composure through sheer force of will. She'd dealt with perilous situations before, but this place seemed explicitly designed to extinguish all hope. The energy displacement from that rift knocked out our primary power relays. We're running on auxiliaries at best. Then we reroute command pathways to the central nexus, Tamal stated with determined finality. Get me a security team to the reactor core. Whatever's powering these breaches, I'll wager my command pips it's originating from in there. Zara regarded her first officer with a measured look, before giving a nod of approval. Do it. I'll join the defensive cordons and try to buy us some time. As Tamal began marshalling damage control crews to secure vital systems, Zara turned to her ops officer. Arjun, tell all hands to initiate countermanding protocols for atmospheric evacuation. Get anyone not involved in core repowers into sealing their sections off. If those things start breaching, we'll isolate compartments sequentially and— Her words froze in her throat as a thunderous metallic screech echoed through the command deck. On the view screen, a towering breacher construct had affixed itself to the Arcadian's hull, power tendrils burrowing through depleted shield arrays to interface with the ship's internal circuits. The bridge crews could only watch in mute horror as the breacher's biomechanical maw unfolded like an obscene metallic flower. From deep within its pulsating innards, something slithered outward, a glistening chitinous appendage that made Zara's stomach lurch. No, not appendages, Zvena stated in a small synthetic voice, heavy with dismay. Macrofaunal parasites. Even as the science officer spoke those dreaded words, the sinuous parasites began slithering out of the breacher's open maw, squirming through internal hull breaches in uncountable numbers. They mercilessly tore through exposed circuitry and decking, worming into every vulnerable access vent and port on their mindless quest to infest and assimilate anything technological across the Arcadian. Zara tasted bile in the back of her throat as images of those obscene parasites overrunning her precious ship devouring her crew in a remorseless biological feeding frenzy, flashed through her mind's eye. She would not allow such a nightmare scenario to unfold if she had anything to do with it, not while her conviction still burned. "Bridge officers, with me!" she snapped over the cacophony of increasingly frantic damage alerts. Snatching up a plasma arc caster, Zara took off at a sprint toward the shuddering hull breaches through which the xeno-horrors were still pouring. "Defensive pattern Zartok 5, for the Coalition!" Exchanging grim nods with her bridge team, Zara led them into the snarling corridors, now echoing with the hideous sounds of technology being ravaged by implacable biologic consumptive forces. Whatever fresh hells this night world had unleashed upon them, the Arcadians' crew would meet the terrors head-on, or be utterly devoured in the attempt. As howling whirlwinds of alien parasites converged from every breach and bulkhead, the battle was joined in a blinding fury of sizzling arcfire and gnashing mandibles. Chapter 4. The Draconian Prophecy. Zara's arccaster lanced scorching plasma into the surging tides of xenoparasites flooding the Arcadians' ravaged decks. The consumptive horrors shrieked with mindless hunger, hundreds more forcing their way through every breached bulkhead and rent conduit. Beside her, Tamal's security teams held the line with disciplined volleys of particle fire and canisters of cryogenic sealant. But for every foul parasite they vaporized or flash froze, infinitely more surged forth in overwhelming waves of glistening metallic gnashing abomination. "They're swarming from the reactor core," Tamal shouted over the firefight's din, his expression a rictus of grim determination. "Whatever's taken control down there, it's using the Arcadians' power matrix like a homing beacon to call in more breachers." Zara risked a glance toward the central nexus umbilical they'd been forging toward. Billowing clouds of caustic vapor and arcing energy tendrils erupted from its breached iris, clear signs that something had overridden the antimatter reactors, safeguards and primary cannons. "We'll never make it past those defenses," she shouted back, her throat raw from the acrid atmosphere. Purple flame and veins of profane energy pulsed along the bulkheads surrounding the nexus each time another breaching monstrosity clawed through, their diamond-tipped carapaces impervious to even the heaviest ordnance. As if in mocking confirmation of her words, a towering shape erupted through the reactor core's interior iris. Metal screeched, and rivulets of exotic radiation seared Zara's skin as a massive bioconstruct cyclopean horror slithered outward into their midst. The nightmare machine had clearly been purpose-forged from the Arcadians' own ravaged systems, disjointed components from torpedo arrays and antimatter injectors, grotesquely fused with gorid biologies, towering over them in a chaotic mass of sentient malignancy. Leering optic clusters swept the embattled crews in all directions, as ciliatic augers whirred from misshapen jaws, finally fixing on Zara with an unmistakable aura of ancient malice. "Zara Kindar!" An eldritch chorus of damned souls gurgled from the monstrosity's maw. "The desecrated, to reclaim your ship, your crew, and unravel the knot of infinity, you must hear our prophecy." Wasting no time on shocked demands for explanation, Zara brought her arccaster to bear on the Cyclopean nightmare, only to have its discharge dissipated harmlessly against forward shielding of psionic force. "Hear me, twisted freak," she roared back, struggling to maintain her indomitable spirit in the face of such abhorrent hostility. "Your kind have trespassed against the sovereignty of an Alliance explorer. This ship, my crew, shall not be profaned while I still draw a—" "Such arrogance!" The bio-horror's deafening scream shook debris from the wrecked hull around them. "We are the Tegran Hu, the far ancients exiled from our progenitor realm, defilers of your pathetic alliance trespassed into our celestial-bound dominion." As the aberrant intelligence bellowed, its myriad perspectived foci reoriented on Zara in a manner that chilled her to the core. "You seek the archaic ones known as the Kixen, but their fate is subsumed by our prophesied re-emergence. Now know the truth, Zara Kindar. Behold your draconic reckoning." Around the bio-horror, the very fabric of existence seemed to undulate in arcane sympathy. Time and physics wavered, if only for the briefest subjective instant, before reknitting anew around a cosmic Armageddon scenario beyond mortal comprehension. The once sealed reactor chamber now yawned open onto an apocalyptic spectacle raging across multiple spatial dimensions. Solar systems stretched as far as the eye could perceive in every vector, countless worlds burning from the footprints of titanic intergalactic cataclysms. Debris clouds from decimated armadas, both organic and machine, tangled amid storms of vented radioactive hellfire. Space itself was being rendered asunder, all semblance of distance and unified chronology shredded into screaming cosmic chose by forces beyond human reckoning. In the heart of that incomprehensible oblivion, Zara witnessed the source, entities of such vast power they defied mortal descriptors beyond draconic. Impossibly immense leviathans with gargantuan forms comprised of pure exotic radiation and distorted dimensionality, shattering the cosmos with every unholy aspect of their existence. Their cyclopic shadows eclipsed galaxies in their passing. Gravity tornadoes and anti-energic hellswarms geysered in their wake, birthing singularities and eldritch plagues that unmade entire universal shells. Realities, multiverses, all of existence, was being steadily reduced to an entropic haze for these quasi-deific monstrosities to devour into prismatic oblivion from which the cycle could begin anew. Despite her best efforts to steel her psyche against such maddening revelation, Zara felt her grip on sanity start to crumble. No mortal mind could process such a malignant, antithetical vision of being. Whole planes of existence were being deconstructed by these draconic Goliaths' sheer presence. And according to the Tegranhu's horrid revelation, that was their universe's inevitable reckoning unless... No, no! Seizing every last fibre of her will, Zara wrenched her consciousness from the visions of cosmic apocalypse and hurled herself toward the cyclopean bio-horror. Her arccaster overloaded in a coruscating blast that seared through the aberrant entity's psionic hindrance. Enough for her to seize hold of it physically. "I reject your nightmare prophecy, Tegranhu Dafilas," she roared with the last echoes of her indomitable spirit. "As long as my crew and I draw breath, the Alliance's legacy of exploration and hope will persevere against your universal extinction. We'll find a way to stop—" The creature cut her off with a contemptuous roar that shook the decks underfoot. "Your false bravado is useless before our inevitability, mortal. Already, the seeds of unravelling have been sown in your plane, just as they were in realms your kind cannot hope to comprehend." Gargantuan olipedionic limbs slammed down from above, narrowly missing Zara as she was flung clear by the thundering impact. Around the Tegranhu horror, space itself rippled and warped with increasing instability, the aegis between dimensions growing ever more tenuous. Soon existence. As you feeble beings know, it shall be eclipsed forever. Our draconian heralds shall emerge to reclaim the celestial realms once denied to them. And from the ashes of your ruined cosmos, the Tegranhu shall seize justly what was always ours. Infinite dominion. Zara shook her head defiantly, even as emerald flares of exotic radiation seared her flesh. She opened her mouth to counter the horror's extinction litany with righteous defiance. But instead of words, only a scream of agony escaped her lips as the warped, non-dimensional spaces reached their full inversion point. Along with the withering energies of an unravelling reality tearing her asunder, she felt the last remnants of her sanity unspooling into the final cosmic whirlwind. Chapter 5. The Cosmic Convergence. Zara's world shattered into a whirling vortex of anti-reality as the Tegranhu's dread prophecies manifested in full. Her very molecules were being torn asunder, rewritten into obscene new codices of universal law never meant for mortal witnessing. She could feel her crew, her precious ship, the totality of Alliance legacy, all being subsumed by the ravening cosmic tides loosed by these eldritch harbingers. Realities bled into one another in a profane continuum, the cycle of infinite planes rendered into a singularity of ultimate oblivion. Just as the last vestiges of her being started to unspool forever, a brilliance cut through the unravelling cataclysm. coherent form coalesced around Zara's fractured consciousness in the shape of luminescent geometries and arcane symbols that defied all perception of dimensions. Champion of cosmic mercy, a reverberating chorus resonated from the transdimensional light forms, seeming to draw from 1 trillion harmonic frequencies at once. We are the Tavari, sojourners of the celestial continua, keepers of this realm's last hopes against the devouring unmaking. Around Zara's embattled psyche, wondrous hyperdimensional panoramas manifested, entire multiversal fields existing in spheres of unified temporality bleeding into one another in kaleidoscopic profusion. Prismatic civilizations rose and fell in grandeur echoing eternity, only to be snuffed out by encroaching voids of dissolute entropic corruption. What is this place? Zara's voice was scarcely more than a whisper, realization dawning. Are these the domains the Tegranhu seek to eclipse? Among numberless others awakened to sentience across levels of dimensionality your species cannot comprehend, the Tavari chorused in pulsing celestial harmonics. All stand upon the precipice of absolute event horizon, the consummate juncture where the Tegranhu's perverted crusade to unmake existence itself shall achieve its unholy fruition. As if in malign counterpoint to their prophetic warnings, baleful lights began illuminating the far edges of the hyperdimensional panorama. Terror, unlike any Zara had endured, lanced through her very soul as she recognized the Draconian Harbingers, manifesting across billions of cosmic horizons simultaneously. We have waged resistance for aeons uncounted against the Tegranhu's extinction calculus, the Tavari intoned in quickening celestial harmonics. Yet for each universal gyre we fortify, 100 more fall to cataclysmic unravelling. You now bear witness, Champion Kindar, the cosmic convergence point between your reality and the forcible return of these virulent harbingers of oblivion. Reality itself, whited out in a torrent of exotic radiation, as the Tavari's panorama shifted to reveal the full destructive enormity of the universe-shattering chaos. Wherever the awareness-searing light touched, cosmic architecture and natural laws deconstructed into base entropic dissolution. And at the epicenter of those annihilating forces, Zara perceived the draconic harbingers ascending through ruined planes of existence, progenitor titans with vast cyclopean forms of pure malefic energy that shamed the Tegranhu biohorrors into insignificance. Each footfall of those quasi-deific terrors crushed galaxies into antimatter singularities, entire cosmoversal sprawls cracking apart like inconsequential dust motes before their sheer profane intensity. The fabric separating dimensions became as ephemeral as vapors, scattering alternate realms through infinite regression into the progenitor's insatiable gullets. You perceive now, Champion, the Tavari's voices rang with cosmic sorrow, if this consummate unravelling cannot be thwarted, if the heralds cannot be prevented from manifesting as a gestalt omega across vectored realities, all of cosmic being will be rewritten into unending null entropic void for all infinity. A hurricane of power and incredulous denial whirled through Zara as she processed the staggering revelation. The free-willed multiverse she knew had been a mere fragile spark all along, teetering upon a cosmic precipice above the eternal abyss. And after aeons of desperate contention, now the reality-rending draconic progenitors were poised to extinguish that spark forever under a tidal wave of infinite entropic oblivion. The screaming intensity of their hate and hunger to undo all existence itself defied every concept of hope or purpose Zara had ever held sacrosanct. It was too impossible to process. And yet, with the Tavari's exhortations illuminating every particle of her being with their harrowing truth, denial held no sanctuary. She had witnessed the reckoning firsthand, experienced the ultimate negation, all unfolding cosmic realities trembled upon. Then, from the unravelling eye, amid that apocalyptic vortex, a simple question resounded with existential weight. What must I do? The Tavari's prismatic chorus swelled in benediction as their celestial harmonics pierced into Zara's embattled psyche. You must draw upon the full power of your inviolable spirit, champion, for if such boundless conviction can be harnessed against the Harbinger's unfurling ennui, then at the multiversal convergence, existence itself may yet be reignited anew. Upon the precipice of unmaking, Zara found her will to endure burning ever brighter. As impossible as the task seemed, she would not allow this omega terminus to extinguish the hopes of infinite universal potentials without an ultimate fight. Around her consciousness, the Tavari's panoramas realigned to reveal a singular abyss from which all cosmic genesis radiated. We shall channel the coalescence of every reality's possibility life code through your spirit's indomitable spark. And at the moment of convergence totality, your defiance must forge a new grand singularity to rekindle the cosmic being. Chapter 6. Echoes of Eternity. The full totality of infinite cosmic potential flooded into Zara's being as the Tavari channeled hyperversal energies unlike anything she could have conceived. She became a nexus, a singular point of convergence, shaping the coalescence of every universe's subatomic possibilities. All of creation, all of infinite cosmic life and negation and transcendent being flowed into and through her spirit's indomitable spark of conviction. Each mote of light amidst the panorama of countless cosmoverses being subsumed by the draconic progenitors, ravening jaws found new hope in Zara's radiant defiance against the annihilating planewalkers. She is the coalescence! The Tavari's chorus swelled to trans-universal magnitudes, their celestial harmonics taking on euphoric intensity. Infinite cosmic hope unified in a single audacious spark to rekindle the multiversal gyre at totality's threshold. Even as those sacred words resonated through planes of existence, enduring dissolution, the cataclysm emanating from the awakened progenitors reached its cataclysmic apex. Through the atrocious continuum of realities unspooling into antimatter entropy, Zara perceived one of the omnicidally powerful Harbingers draw its focus toward the singularity of her being. Its progenitor form surged with planewalker ichor of profaned quantum violence, warping all surrounding realms into a supramassive accretion vortex. The abomination focused its insatiable hunger on the infinite hope channeling through Zara's soul. Immortal consciousness, converging upon her with apocalyptic finality. Yet even in that nadir moment, as all of cosmic being seemed doomed to entropic extermination, Zara did not falter. She reached out with every iota of the infinite potential catalyzed within, drawing upon the full power of that audacious spark that had first carried her and the Arcadian crew into the abyssal darkness. Return to the dreaming void, defy. Her voice erupted across the multiversal continuum in a trillion harmonic proficience. This cosmos is not yours to extinguish. From within and around and beyond, Zara's luminescent singularity, supernovae of ecstatic creation energy detonated in a cosmic rebirth, defying all abhorrent negations. Planes of being were rekindled into newborn existences, resurrected from the progenitor's ravenous gullet, by life codices rewritten with Zara's immutable hope at their core fractal. The draconic harbinger bellowed in frustrated rage, its apocalyptic shadow form billowing across spacetimes to smother the resurgent realities burgeoning in radiant geometries around the audacious explorer. Stamped from the forges of creation, Zara matched the negation with euphoric tides of infinite potential, existence's full harmonic chorus. "You wild only entropic finality, soulless one," she declaimed with deliverance energizing every syllable. "But I stand for hope, for unity emboldened, for every luminous form defying your consumption." Prismatic tsunamis of divine genesis crashed against the draconic abomination, existence's potentiality swelling in torrents of ecstatic creation with Zara as its nexus. Withered galaxies flowered into newborn starglomes, every plane of being resonating in cosmic symphonies that overpowered the planewalker's annihilating frequencies. Reality by reality, hope triumphed over negation, until at last the draconic horror recoiled in agony from the infinite renewal scouring its cosmic shadow. Zara poured the last of her immolating will into a final incandescent torrent, shouting defiance through every cosmic Gaia. "This celestial multiversal shall never be unmade. Go now and roil in your own entropic dreaming, soulless ravager, for with every breath, every nexus of conviction, hope shall cosmos forge anew." In a paroxysm of light scouring the abomination back through the cosmic abyss, the Harbingers' agonized bellows reverberated into silence throughout the resplendently reborn planes. Where once world-devouring annihilation had reigned, now only radiant geometries and celestial harmonies whispered across existence's reawakening Gaias. As Zara's unbowed spirit rekindled the final renewing potentials, the Tavari's chorus paid homage across all dimensional veils with sublime resonances. All cosmic life re-illuminated, the multiversal night chased into oblivion's abyss once and for all. Through the grace of one intransigent spark, hope shall blaze across eternity's resplendent. Zara smiled as the Tavari's panoramic revelations faded alongside her physical form. She could sense her indomitable spirit recatalyzing the cosmic moat of star stuff that was her beginning, and the Arcadian cruise saga continuing on in newly reforged universal coefficients. Across infinite planes, singing with euphoria and resurgent worlds, flowered from the ashes of ruination, Zara allowed the strains of ebullient creation to whisk her essence into destiny's ether song. No matter the abyssal darkness faced, audacious hope would forever stride unvanquished among the stars. A new cosmic age now blazed with infinite luminous possibility. And in the celestial harmonics, echoing across eternity's manifold spirals, brave new voyages of exploration were just dawning on reality's horizons.